February 2025 reconciliation report and the collector's February 2025 fees.
Okay, Commissioner Committee liaison reports and upcoming meetings and events.
Transportation meeting tomorrow morning. Cancel meeting was canceled, we don't have anything on the agenda. Friday, Good Fridays, Warrensville, St. Joseph, Elias, and Russellville, that I know of. Any other ones?
Did you say Elias?
Yeah.
Okay, and St. Joe has
I
theirs.
was reminded of
St.
that.
Joe has theirs.
Good job, Mark.
Okay,
Just wanted you to remember the western side, central and western side.
I didn't bring my Catholic Missouri in with us. We'll have to do that next time.
is that all you got?
Yes, sir.
Let's see, you and I are going to Fulton, Callaway County on Wednesday for the rest.
Thursday,
Thursday.
yeah.
Yes, Thursday.
They might keep us, you never know.
West Central County Commissioners Association District meeting. Parks Committee meeting is also Wednesday afternoon, or at noon, and I'm gonna meet with the MoDOT rep on Friday, I think it is, Heartland Port. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, Thursday, besides our meeting in Fulton, that evening, we have our 250th anniversary committee meeting. And then Friday morning is the Chamber Leadership Forum. Saturday morning is the Sons of Union Veterans, but then we're going to the St. James Winery with Sharon Knott. For our 250th, we're gonna bottle 250 bottles of wine, and they're from the Knott Vineyard, so we're gonna go meet with the winery to work on that. And that is all I have. So we will go to presentation from staff, consultants, invited guests, the Cole County Stormwater Program.
So we're required to do this every year, just give an update on our program. And again, through DNR, we have a municipal separate storm sewer system permit, MS4 permit through DNR. This is part of the EPA Clean Water Act. DNR, it's handed down to the states to enforce. DNR then hands it down to the counties that have these urbanized areas for them to regulate. So part of our program is to give an update, so I'll do that. So the MS4 permit, there's 6 areas in which we were supposed to do odds and ends to reduce pollution into the stormwater system. And these 6 areas that we have to focus on are public outreach and education, public involvement, illicit discharge, detection and elimination, construction site runoff control, post-construction runoff control, and good housekeeping in our municipal operations. So some of what we do through the public outreach and education is we do have on our webpage, we have a section on stormwater where we'll post odds and ends, various information for homeowners, residents of the county. And then we also have on our Facebook page, we do regular posts on that. We just did one last week. Just keeping residents mindful of stormwater impacts to the streams and what they can do as general homeowners and residents, what they can do to help with that. We also do mailings to targeted areas, maybe related to a project or a specific area that we want to hit on where there might be some concerns. We encourage citizens to, if they have an issue, to contact us. Last year, we documented 26 calls related to stormwater, and all these are investigated. And we track those within Cartograph. We also have a Stormwater Management Advisory Committee that's a subset of the Road and Bridge Advisory Board, and they meet twice a year to allow public input. And since we started that, we've had 2 citizen groups come forward. We addressed those, and actually one of those led to an improvement that we made. So it is a good forum for citizens. Usually they just call the office, but if they feel like, maybe we told them that this is a private issue and they feel like, no, it ought to be a county issue or whatever, they can bring it to this advisory committee, which will review it. So it's a good forum, doesn't get used very much. Most of the time they're small issues that we just address in-house. We also inspect our outfalls. We have several outfalls from our system out into the county. We inspect those, we have to as part of this program. We did 14 inspections last year. We did one inspection of a potential illicit discharge and addressed that. And we encourage residents to properly dispose of household hazardous waste. And in the coming year, we'll review the rest of the storm sewer system within the urbanized area and to do screening as well on that. In '24, we had 7 active public infrastructure projects. One of them was a private subdivision development, and we do formal inspections of those as required by the plan and the program. We did 8 inspections, and then we also do our daily job site visits. And new developments, they do have to mitigate stormwater quantity and quality. Last year, we had the one private development, and in 2024, we did receive training. Staff received training on certain best management practices for post-construction runoff. One thing we're required to do is hold an annual training of employees. We did not do that last year. We ended up not doing our safety day. We were going to push that to the fall, and then we did not do that. So that is reported in the plan or the program or the report that we did not complete the training, but we'll get back on and do that this year. And then also to reduce the amount of pollutant loads going into the streams, we do have to do sweeping of our streets. We did 27 miles last year, and that's reported in our report to DNR. And also coming this year and into next, we'll be updating our facilities, stormwater pollution prevention plans, and then also our spill prevention control and countermeasure plans for our bulk fuel storage of our sites. So that's an update of what we've been working on with the plan and the program with DNR, and then I'll also give a status of current and recent stormwater projects. So we had the 2 large-scale studies of areas west of Jefferson City that were funded through the ARPA program, and those were initially a study to determine what could be done, what areas we need to focus on, and that led to several different projects. And they were split into 2 studies. Westview Heights was one, and then the other one was Apache Flats, Henwick, Natchez Trace, kind of the Rainbow Bender Lake drainage area. Projects that we were able to complete, one was in Apache Flats, the storm stream channel there near the large box culvert on Business 50. We were able to do a clean out of that. That was recommended. And then there's 2 other projects in that drainage area. One is a stormwater diversion channel in the Bender Lake Park area west of Natchez Trace subdivision, and then also a detention basin on property owned by the county and also the school district, Pioneer Trail School, to detain water and help decrease the amount of runoff going down. Those projects are in the design phase. There's regulatory things we have to go through to do that, and they'll take time. And then also in Westview Heights, there's a detention basin that we're going to build on the side of an old lagoon, sewer lagoon. And that too, there's some regulatory things we got to go through with that. So because of these delays, I wouldn't say delays, just the process to get permits approved and everything, we're able to do an agreement to extend the ARPA funds, but we were also able to shift some ARPA funds to other stormwater projects that we had kind of been waiting. So those projects that we were able to shift some funds to were kind of spot stormwater improvements on Glenstone Drive, or Glenstone Court actually, Briar Village Drive, and then Galena Drive. Those projects 2 are done. Glenstone is under construction right now, and then we also have a large subdivision stormwater improvement project in the Lakewood subdivision, and that's out for bid. The pre-bid meeting is today, actually. Matt's doing that, and it bids next week. So, and those will be funded by the ARPA funds that were agreed to move into this year, and then remaining ARPA funds, we'll put those towards one or more of the other projects that have to be finished design. And then we also have another large-scale stormwater improvement project in the Westview Heights. It's actually the west end of that, South Brooks Drive Phase 3, and that project we got that CDBG grant for. There's a lot of, with those funds, there's a lot of other administrative type things that we got to go through, and it does take some time. There's actually a change order or a supplemental agreement to the engineering that will be later in today's meeting to cover some of those expenses. But that project did get authorized to begin acquiring easements, and that is underway, and we're hoping to bid that later in the year. That estimated construction construction is about $900,000. And then also just some general information for homeowners to think about. So we are getting into the very rainy season, and this is when we get the bulk of our stormwater calls, complaints, issues, or whatever. And just to remind citizens and just anybody in general that the county, so what we maintain is the pipes and the inlets in the street, outlet pipes, or inlet pipes draining into our system and then out of our system. And then the outlet ditch, we want to maintain that to minimize or prevent any erosion downstream. But once that water leaves the system, it's the responsibility of the property owner. They are responsible for water that drains onto and off of their property, also creek channels that might be a part of their property. We do get a lot of calls asking, hey, I got this issue, and if it's a situation where it's just a property owner issue, we cannot address that. We'll give them some advice on how to handle, but we can't do anything, expend any county funds to do that. Property owners should be cautious working in the creeks that might be regulated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Any activities might require a permit through the Corps, so people need to be cautious of that. If they got a question about anything, they can call us and we can advise them on what they might want to do. They can also call the Corps of Engineers for advice. Residents should avoid changing the channel of a creek for purposes of redirecting the water or expanding their usable yard area. We see this a lot. First, like I just said, it could be a violation of the Corps of Engineer regulations. And second, it can cause head cutting upstream and lead to significant erosion. When somebody modifies this stream, it wants to revert back to its original stream gradient or slope, and that'll cause head cutting, deepening of the channel upstream. I can attest to this firsthand because this was done on my property back in the 80s, and I've seen the impacts to this over time. And it does change the stream, and it can cause problems. So residents should be cognizant of that. Again, we can't necessarily do anything for them, but if they have a question about something, we're happy to give them some advice on how to handle. Residents should not dump grass clippings or tree limbs in the creeks. Sometimes the conventional wisdom is this will help eliminate erosion or help hold the bank or whatnot. Actually, the opposite is true. It can cause clogs in the creek, redirect the water around, cause more problems, and then also it can affect the quality of the stream water. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have that Stormwater Management Advisory Committee. We'll review any concerns that somebody has. It's a very formal process. Again, they can just call the office. That's pretty simple, and if it's just a routine thing, that's how it's normally handled. And that's about all I have. Is there any questions? Okay. Tried to go through it as quick as I could. I know it's a lot to cover, but appreciate that. So that covers our annual update for our stormwater program.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any commission comments? None. Bids and contracts. Approval of memorandum of understanding with Public Water Supply District Number 2 for cooperative work on the Wildwood Drive Extension project.
So we had talked about this prior, and we've been working on this agreement. As the plans were being developed for the Wildwood Drive extension, there was some water relocation work, and then also a desire of the district to expand water service to the FAR development, and that's on the north end. And so the relocation work, because it was part of expanded right-of-way that we acquired around where the roundabout is, that is our cost to cover that. We've been working with the water district on these types of things, and they'll provide the materials for that, and then we provide the equipment and labor to do the work. In the case down at Edgewood, where they're extending it to the development, that is their cost, but it's bid in with our project. And so we agreed that we would do that work, and then they just reimburse us for that. So the cost of that, and it's spelled out in the agreement of everything I just said, but the cost of that new installation work down at Edgewood is $59,600, and so they will reimburse us that amount after that work is complete. So we drafted an MOU, legal reviewed it, and then we sent it to the water district. They reviewed it and signed it. So we just need the county commission to approve and sign this MOU with Public Water Supply District Number 2.
MOU there?
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the MOU between County of Cole and Public Water Supply District Number 2.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Signing of the Salute to America Agreement for 2025.
This is the agreement for the Salute to America, and it has been budgeted, and
Yes.
that's just our annual agreement, I think.
Good.
Mhm.
Make a motion to approve and sign the Salute to America agreement.
Second.
You did a second?
I second.
Okay, this is, as usual, it's a $5,000 number, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. All right.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Approval of supplemental agreement number 2 for engineering services for South Brooks stormwater improvements.
So, as I said, this, I mentioned just a little bit ago, so we do have that project to do the large-scale stormwater improvement on South Brooks. Kind of borders the Bagnell, Jasper Lane, a lot of the west end of Westview Heights. And we got that CDBG grant a couple years ago in the amount of $500,000. And through that process, there was a supplemental number 1 that was done because there was a report that had to be done for that and additional work, and then additional design work rolled into everything. And now this last supplemental for $62,998 covers revising legal descriptions and getting the packets ready to start acquiring easements. And that was per certain requirements for CDBG. And then also revising final plans. There was some different work that had to be done, different things through that process with CDBG. And then also, we have some money rolled in for construction phase services, bidding it, helping us answer questions during construction, during the bid phase. So that's something that we typically will add towards the end, but we're adding it right now. And as I mentioned earlier, the project is, they've started acquiring easements. I don't know if they've actually gotten any yet, but it's in the process, the acquisition process. So there's about 60 or so easements, give or take. It will take some time. We're hoping to have this project out for bid by the end of the year. And I know CDBG, they do have some requirements on getting it bid. I think originally they told us May or June, which was not feasibly or practically possible just with the amount of easements and then some delays in getting the authorization to do that. So we're hoping we can get an extension. But this is just supplemental number 2. We just need approval of this, and it's with Bartlett West for $62,998.
So you might have said what the additional design and construction services were that are outside of the original scope. I was reading some of this, I missed that. So what did they miss? Because we've already done one agreement, a supplemental agreement. The original design service was $103,000 and some change. Now we're here double that, so is that?
Well, if Matt was here, he could give you a better explanation. I'll do my best. So, and we've said this before, grants do require extra administrative. In the case of CDBG, there was a lot of work that had to be done to get the grant, to administer it, certain requirements, submittals, just a lengthy process for that. And some of the design work that had to be done through that process is included in here. Changes to the design. I know we had some work for the detention basin that we're doing as part of the project too. There was a lot of coordination through that. The easements, typically when we do an agreement, it's a pretty straightforward, just a legal description, a drawing and everything. With CDBG, there's, expanded things that they gotta do. And they have to, there's forms that have to be tied to this for donation forms. People have to waive compensation if they want to just donate it. So there's a little bit more of a process for
So
that.
the grant will take care of the additional designs as well?
It's $500,000 total. So whatever it takes to get to that point, we can start using the grant funds now.
So that many grant funds is for designs only, or is that for the actual project?
We just get $500,000 for the project. It was originally estimated $900,000 or so. So whatever, and then plus additional design costs. So that's 216. So we're, call it 1.1 million or so, and 500,000 is coming from CDBG to it's still, it's, you know, good to get the grants, and it definitely helps us, but it does take a little more money to follow the guidelines, I guess what I'm saying. And this is common across all grants, you doing the BRO projects with MoDOT, the TAP projects, we estimate about another 25% in design costs just to meet the different requirements that they have.
So when they originally designed it, their estimate was based on it just being designed and not having to jump through the hoops for the grants, the CDBG grant.
It's 103,897.50, and at that time, we did not have that detention basin, so that's an additional cost that's kind of rolled into some of these other design fees. Some of that was really in agreement number 1 on the detention basin, from what I remember, but then just additional cost. And I appreciate the questions, and I can assure you that through the process, it takes a lot of time to administer all these
I
things.
mean, if we have an estimate on the job and it doubles it, it just, there's red flags there. What's it gotta be so much for? So,
There is a detailed schedule that, attached, isn't there?
Yeah, there's,
the hourly, what is,
Well,
I
it,
mean, it's not to exceed that amount, the 62,000.
there's a schedule that adds to 62,998. It has items as small as $130 and as tall as $18,000 for revised legal descriptions. 9,000 for storm
Thank you.
sewer plan profile sheets,
Thank you.
so on and so forth. Am I looking at the right attached schedule that?
yeah, the legal, they're having to revise the legal descriptions, and the whole packet for acquisition is $18,000, and that's because of the changes had to be made for CDBG requirements. And there's bidding documents have to be done in compliance with CDBG requirements, and so that's an additional cost there. You know, there's a lot of the money that was previously put towards the project was used for other things related to getting everything approved through CDBG, and it's a lengthy process, and anytime you gotta redraft a set of plans or have a meeting or whatever, it just takes time and cost, so.
Would you care to take a stab at when we look back at this after it's all completely finished, cost incurred and paid, it's gonna total what number and how much of that has been paid for via CDBG?
So after we're done, give you a total summary.
Could you speculate as to what, at the end of the day, if we would've said no to the grant, we're not going for it, of course, we wouldn't have the project done
Right.
at all, and we would've passed upon $500,000.
$500,000.
I mean, it is using OPM, what we refer to as other people's money, although it's really, I guess, sort of belongs to us, but other public money, but the county didn't put it up.
Right.
At the end of the day, is this gonna be $1 million and a half of it was funded by the grant?
The total project cost, like I said, we're estimated construction cost of $900,000, and then engineering's $216, so you're 1.116 now. You still have $500,000 coming from CDBG to help pay for it, so the county's expending $600 and some odd thousand dollars on a project that's gonna cost, at the end of the day, over $1 million when you figure design costs.
And this isn't an area that needed it.
Yeah, definitely needed it, yeah, this is actually one of the last pieces to the Westview puzzle as far as stormwater improvements. And then next, actually we have a few little spot improvements next year. And then in 27, we'll do a full overlay of everything, so.
Well, to me, the $500,000 grant, I really appreciate that, and we would probably still be spending this same amount of money on engineering, so at least we've kinda got it covered, so, it is what it is, but, I still appreciate the fact that we have this grant.
Anytime we get federal money for any kind of project, for engineering, you can assume about a 25% increase. And it's not that there's that much more engineering done, it's just there's so many steps and documents to have to provide to get approvals and authorization to begin the next step, and it just takes time. And it's not something that the state agency, they're just doing what's required by the federal agencies for using the money. So what we have, it's $62,000 added to the engineering cost. So, and like I said earlier, you can assume about 25% extra for using these funds. Now, there is some of that previous supplemental number 2, a lot of that was rolled into designing the stormwater detention basin that was not part of the original. So I don't think it's too far off from that 25% that we'd expect. Maybe a little on the higher side. This one, compared to what we've seen with other grants, there was a lot more administrative and bureaucratic, processes to go through than what we've normally seen. So, and CDBG, there's different categories of that, and they're not all the same as far as what's required. In this case, we had to do the notification to the Indian tribes, and I think that we also had to do a study, a cultural resources study, so a lot of other stuff is rolled into this that normally we wouldn't have to do. So,
Okay.
In case you're wondering what we're whispering about here is Melissa indicates that our voices aren't being heard very well, the three of us, across the fruited plain that's out there listening or trying to, so.
So they're not hearing the brilliance that we are.
They're hearing you guys, but not very loudly.
Obviously, I'm recording the audio, and if y'all need, if y'all Premiere Pro, if you can borrow my audio and sync it up with the video in editing if you want, if you need that,
Oh, okay, thank you.
I would be happy to provide.
Thank
that.
you, Dan.
But a whisper is coming through,
Yeah.
if
So they
our
just have
voices
to
are
turn-
coming through as a whisper, we
Yeah.
need to talk louder.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they can hear the table fine.
Oh,
I
the
moved
table's
mine
fine?
right here.
Oh,
Well, where's yours?
I moved it right here, so,
Can you get it up here?
yeah, they may not hear us though, but they don't need to hear us. How's that?
sure
Can we
they
see
need
if
to
that's
hear
gonna
you.
be better?
We'll see that, then I'll go out and.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion on the approval of supplemental agreement number 2?
No, I'll just hold my nose.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve supplemental agreement number 2 on the South Brooks Drive Stormwater Improvements Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we basically just got a $400,000 grant is what it amounts to now.
yeah, that's reality.
So- I mean, why aren't we designing this to where, never mind.
Okay. New business, accounts payable review, ma'am?
I'd ask for approval of accounts payable pending your review.
Do you have any mileage reimbursements or anything on there?
I think I'm in there for the trip to the lake and back. Now,
Okay.
I have a philosophy, maybe a little different than yours, that I can make a motion to approve accounts payable pending review, but I don't do the review on that one. You do. So I don't have a problem making the motion,
Okay,
approve accounts payable pending review.
all right, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Assessors MOU with Missouri State Tax Commission, compliance status. We have some serious issues. Our assessor has been working under an MOU with the State Tax Commission, but he received a letter on January 31st, 2025, saying that the results are not within the acceptable parameters for 2023. And anyway, I'm gonna pass this over to our Western District Commissioner because he has been more involved with this.
Okay, as the presiding commissioner mentioned, a letter went out from the Missouri State Tax Commission to our assessor, our Cole County assessor. It was dated January 31st of 2025, and it stated the final residential sales study results are not within acceptable parameters for 2023. The commissioners were informed of this on Wednesday of last week. So one of my questions, if the assessor had attended today, and he was apprised of this being on the agenda, was why did it take from January 31 or maybe February 1 or 2 until March of last Wednesday, what that date was, for us to find out about it?
And we heard about it from our clerk.
Well, the truth is the clerk got that letter too,
Yes,
and
yes.
did not inform us. But neither party did
Yeah.
until last week. And the clerk is actually where the notice came from. The letter stated that the Missouri State Tax Commission would follow up with the assessor to discuss the reports in more detail. And I would, if the assessor were here, I would ask him if they did follow up, and whether or not he has been in contact with the Missouri State Tax Commission by phone, or by text, or email, whatever. The letter contained a flow chart, and the flow chart shows what could happen if the assessor fails to comply with the terms of the MOU, which he signed back in January of '24. And that flow chart is rather colorful, and it indicates that if the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, is not followed, state funds will be withheld. That's approximately $120,000 that the State Tax Commission will not send to the Cole County Assessment Fund for a failure to comply. And in addition to that, the Missouri State Tax Commission would issue an equalization order. And that equalization order would go to the Board of Equalization, of course. And if the Board of Equalization does not address the problems, the Missouri State Tax Commission will turn the matter over to the Attorney General's office. My question to the assessor would be, do you anticipate the equalization order will be issued, or do you anticipate you will have complied with the MOU? And if the equalization order is issued, how does the Board of Equalization comply? Jackson County had a tremendous problem a few years ago where a new assessor came in and basically followed the law on appraisals, but they were so far behind, some appraisal increases were as high as 90%. And the Missouri State Tax Commission stepped in and said nothing can go up more than 15%. No property can be increased by more than 15%. So in that case, they did an order and said, you got a limit of 15. I do not know how the Board of Equalization can address an order to bring it up. I could see how they can address an order to take it down. But when you bring it up, to what would be the question. And then what happens if the three of us, as well as the rest of the Board of Equalization, which is another, depending on where the property is located, whether it's in the city or not, is another 2, 3, or 4 people. What action would the Attorney General take against the BOE for failure to comply to an order that may be impossible to comply with? We don't have an assessor present here today to answer those questions. Perhaps he's listening. Perhaps he'll find out these questions and give us some answers.
So were we not told at one time that our assessments were among the highest in compliance? So-
No, we were never told that. It was claimed that that was the
Yes.
case.
So,
To pass the sales ratio study, the study has to come out with a finding of somewhere between 90% and 110. So, in other words, the sales of property, when compared to the value the assessor gives it, a perfect score would be 100. They equal.
well, they got 110% compliance here too, so.
Well, that's true. In passing is you're within 90% or 110%. Your valuation is within 10% plus or minus to the sales price. The last time the assessor here passed the test, he was in the mid-90s, maybe 93. That was passing. It wasn't the best in the state, as he claimed. It wasn't one of the best in the state, as he claimed, but it was passing. 2 years ago, it was 83.9. He failed. He failed even below an 85% number. And because it was below 85%, he was required to execute an MOU. If he would have been between 85 and 90, he would have had a letter of concern. But he was below the letter of concern and in the margin of MOU. The latest one, which came out on the 31st of January, his number is below 70%. It's 60, I believe.
67,
67 and change, 67%
yeah.
and change. And that, I do know that, in speaking with the State Tax Commission, 85 of the 115 assessors in Missouri are out of compliance. So he's in good company with 85 others. But that also means that 30 of them are not. 30 of them passed. How many of those who passed are first-class counties versus second, third, or fourth-class counties? I don't know. I've asked them to tell me. They haven't gotten back to me. But we are sadly below the number for passage or for complying. And if the MOU were followed to the letter, to the nth degree, this won't be an issue.
Where do the sales numbers come from?
The assessor turns them in. He gets them wherever he can. He turns them in.
Because I don't think they have an agreement with the Board of Realtors anymore to get their sales.
That is correct, and
So
Missouri
that's
is a non-reporting state. So when a sale takes place and the assessor asks the seller or the buyer what the number is, they can, within the law, say, we're not telling you. So not every sale gets reported.
So I'm not here defending anybody besides Cole County. And so if they're getting sales numbers, if I sell my house and I want to include something with it, there's other stuff that's with it, it could affect the number. Now, it's not gonna be between a 70 and 90% cause that much of a change, but there's stuff that can be included in the sales of a house, the total sales price. You can roll closing costs in it. I wanted to include a tractor in it and a mower if you want to. So
Well,
where are they getting these numbers from?
they're reported to the assessor. Now, they do, when he turns in the raw data, they do what's called a trim. They trim out sales that they think are not accurate. In other words, when grandpa sells the property to grandson at a bargain price, that's not there. That one gets trimmed out. Is it a reportable or a valid sale is the term they use. Is it a valid sale? So these have been trimmed down. And you may find one or two, and I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 sales are reported over that 2-year period.
Well, I'm just curious about it, because just all I'm hearing right now is the State Tax Commission is saying we have to raise our property taxes, and
They said they have to be accurate. They have to follow the law.
And I'm just concerned that they can withhold funds.
I am as well.
That-
That's why I'm saying I don't know where their numbers are all coming from, because if they're taking out the low ones, then take out some of the high ones. I mean, have it evenly weighted if you're gonna do this.
Well,
So-
I'm not saying it's unfair. I'm saying that they've got a policy and a procedure, and they've been following it for probably since the 80s. And to say now, oh, well, it's not a good way to do it, probably too late for that, especially after someone's been claiming they're one of the best in the state based upon that ratio. But we have no answers today. I've talked to the State Tax Commission since we learned about this last Wednesday, and I asked if they were pursuing it with the assessor. And according to them, they started calling the day after the letter went out on February the 1. And they've quit calling because calls are not taken and not returned. They have texted many times, and one response to via text was, I think it was 3 words: assessments are progressing. That's been the give and take back and forth between our assessor and the State Tax Commission, according to Mr. Larry Jones of the State Tax Commission.
I'm curious too, what we'd have to do at the BOE level. It says we will be notified, so.
Yeah. This is serious, so, it would be good if we could hear from the assessor as to what he is doing and, if this will be accomplished. But we felt we should bring this to the public just because it is gonna affect, all of our citizens, so.
It does show there are some high trends on some of them, so, there's just a bunch of numbers here that, you probably love it. Man,
You probably have to have a master's in statistics to know every line on that schedule. But it's quite extensive.
all right, well, that's just kind of questions I had, so.
Okay,
To be continued, I'd say, is the status.
yes. All righty,
Can I ask a few questions?
yes,
You mentioned.
you might, Nicholas, come up here, since we're having issues with, kind of, sorry.
Of the 120, you gave an approximate $120,000 shortfall. What areas are going to be affected by that shortfall?
It's strictly the assessment fund. There is an assessment fund. Every county has an assessment fund, and revenue flows in from various sources. Actually, there's a balance in this assessment fund of over $1 million. To run the assessor's office, those expenses are paid out of the assessment fund. Nothing else in the county would be affected in a way. In other words, who's going to be short? It's going to be the assessment fund that will be shorted. No other elected official, no other department is going to be hurt by this. It's strictly the assessor's office assessment fund.
How does Cole County get back into compliance, and what is the timeline on that?
The assessor will need to complete and file a Form 11, I believe it's by June 1, perhaps it's June 30, with at least some preliminary numbers as to what the valuations are for the county. And when those numbers are turned in, I think it will become obvious whether or not compliance with the MOU has been accomplished. So every June, the assessor turns in the Form 11, And the Form 11 gets tweaked by the Board of Equalization, as people may have come into the Board of Equalization and asked for an adjustment, and the board grants it, then the totals on Form 11 get tweaked down a little bit. And ultimately, those Form 11 numbers go to every political subdivision in the county, to all the school districts, to the library, to the Cole County Residential Services, fire protection districts, to see what their numbers are within their political subdivisions, because the counties is really a blend of everything, or it covers the whole county, whereas the school district just covers their geographical area. Then those political subdivisions will see if there's been too much of an increase, too much being defined as exceeding the COLA or the CPI, Consumer Price Index, which is 2.9%. So if the valuations go up above that 2.9, then political subdivisions are gonna have to roll back their levies to where they don't get more than a 2.9% increase in property tax revenue. There's an exception if it's due to new construction. New construction is okay to have and to tax, but just appraisal increases, valuation increases, there's a limit that political subdivisions can realize from this.
My final question, if referred to the Attorney General, are there criminal or civil penalties either for just for the assessor's office, he's the outgoing assessor, so what is the process for that?
I do not know. I've only seen the one. I tried to Google Missouri State Tax Commission special orders to BOEs to find out. The only one I could find was the Jackson County one, which I talked about a little bit, and that was to bring the numbers down. They actually ordered that of the assessor and not necessarily the Board of Equalization. I haven't found where the State Tax Commission has issued an order to a BOE and where the BOE said, we can't do it, or we're not gonna do it, and it went to the AG's office and the AG office did X. I don't know. I'm not sure anybody knows. Perhaps they do.
Thank you.
Thanks for the questions.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we will move on. First reading of budget adjustment number 2.
This is for $22,900. This is the child support unit with the raises that happen. This is just gonna increase their budget on both sides, so no action today. Bring it back up in 10 days.
Okay. Alrighty. The senior tax freeze application and process review. Does our collector want to be the spokesman?
So we have copies of the application. I'll probably hand it over to him in a second. I'll start off there. Anybody wants a copy, that should be the latest copies that we're gonna propose for the application and our frequently asked questions. Just kinda wanna go over those
Do we want to
today.
put this back over there?
Oh, well, just, I will.
Is that the only one working?
It seems like it right now. Joe Public is saying.
Put it over there.
Are you done? All right, Larry.
We're just here for moral support for you.
Okay, so basically, these have been emailed. We have a bunch of people on this loosely called committee, I guess. I don't think that works.
You can
Is
hear
that
it,
here to
it's
hear
just,
and
you
whisper?
can hear it's just very faint.
Yes.
Okay.
Talk
Out loud.
So. This reminds me of Blazing Saddles. We can't hear you. She blows them over. All right. You should have the application as a frequently asked questions. They should have been emailed out for you all to review as well, and we wanted to kind of talk about it today and see if this is okay to proceed with this. And the next step would probably be approving a couple other things, the process, some dates. I think we had something else about duplexes or multi-unit buildings.
Condos won't be as big an issue as a duplex where an owner resides in one of the apartments. Our software is set up where you can give a percentage to the owner's half, the part he occupies, and for the tax liability credit, and no credit on the tenant occupied side. Same if it's a 5-unit apartment building and the owner lives in one, you could give a 20% credit for the owner's portion, and the other 80% would be at the going tax rate. There wouldn't be a frozen tax liability on that portion of it. Those are some of the, things that we haven't discussed yet and need to be decided. We're talking about powers of attorney that need to be able to apply for their guardianship, people that are under their guardianship, trust, how the trusts are named, whether they would qualify or not. So there's still a lot of fine details to work out. The good news to me, though, is if 2025 is our base year, nobody would get any credit until 2026. So we still have, in my mind, we don't even have to end the application process really until June of 2026 instead of June of 2025. Since there won't be any, we're going to be freezing the 2025 year, but it will not affect anybody's 2025 taxes because that's going to be the base amount, whatever that comes out as in November when our tax bills come out.
26 is not a reassessment year.
And
so
20
that's
yeah.
kinda where we were thinking it wouldn't affect it until even after that, it'd be 27.
Probably 27 for most taxpayers because 27 is a reassessment year. Their values would go up then and the tax liability would be frozen at the 25 amount that they paid. So we still have some work to do on this. Melissa's been working on the website, getting stuff ready to go out and create the website. I think she sent out an email to everybody that's been on the committee on what that front page will probably look like. So it's gonna take some time to get that developed. Brian's been working on, and Melissa on, what is it, Brian? Integrating the digital document storage so we can scan all the applications in and integrate it with DevNet, is that correct?
Loosely, yes.
Maybe.
We're hopeful that that'll integrate
Our
with.
documents will be in a good document management system.
That we can easily search for the information.
Yes.
We've preliminarily talked about setting up, taking applications here in the commission chambers at times when it's not being used by the commission, and getting help from the recorder's office, the clerk's office, the assessor's office, the collector's office, and some of the commission staff to help take applications, set up like maybe 4-hour periods each day in the beginning. We have scanners. The collector's office just purchased all new scanners, so all our old ones are still usable. We can set up laptops and scanners to do the applications in here with taxpayers so they can apply. We can look at the documentation. There's been discussion about doing online applications, which in some cases may work fine if we have ways of verifying age. A lot of some counties are requiring notarized signatures. We've decided not to do that. We think somebody attesting to it, they're gonna either tell you the truth or they're not. Notarized signature is really all you're notarizing when they sign it is their signature, not whether the document is truthful.
Have you considered a line there for a witness, to witness the signature? Not a notarized signature, not.
Gotcha.
But just a witness that, yes, that was signed and I'm the witness and I saw it signed.
We don't have a line for a witness, but certainly we could put that back in there, put that on there.
Problem is if you take it online would be an issue.
Well, yeah, you don't know who signs it or doesn't.
So the only thing I guess if we're having a notarized signature that you're going to do with it is if somebody lies on there, we're gonna go after them, or are we just gonna say, well, you lied, so we're just gonna unfreeze your taxes and move on? I mean, are we gonna pursue other legal action against them? You know, is it, what is it worth for us? I mean, we just wanna make sure that they're bringing in the correct information. I mean, what is it punishable by if you lie on the application?
I think it's a misdemeanor. I think it's a misdemeanor.
So,
Yeah, that's what it says on the back of our application. I understand I may be charged with a Class A misdemeanor as stated in section 575.050 Missouri Revised Statutes. If any information submitted in this application is found to be false declaration, and I'm not aware of any information that would prohibit or disqualify me from receiving the tax credit for the homestead I've identified in this application. So, I think so far, I mean, I don't think, this may not be the final version of either of these, but I think we have a pretty solid application and facts right now. They may need to be expanded on. I'm not sure. We certainly want to try to make the application process as simple as possible, yet with all the necessary information that we need in order to make sure that they're qualified for the tax freeze.
I think in one of your emails you had mentioned that they have to be current on their tax, you know, paying what they have paid in their taxes. So I thought that was really, you know, good.
So,
You
yes.
hate to freeze somebody's taxes if they haven't paid it for 2 years or something. So,
I'm gonna go back to the signature and let's figure out what we're gonna do with that. I mean, I'm not worried about having a notarized signature if somebody's got it signed and they send false documentation in there, we can hand it over to the prosecutor and let him run with it. I mean, if somebody gonna come in here and, I don't know how many times that's gonna happen, somebody's gonna try to fake this stuff or what, but I don't know if it, I know having a notarized signature is gonna make it easier
Well,
for them
no,
to pursue the
I
charges.
backed off on it. You know,
Yeah.
I went to CCAM meetings and county, you know, MAC meetings, and there was some discussion about notary. And some counties may do it. That may be an overstep, but to have a witness, I think it's reasonable, because actually, if you took it to the prosecuting attorney, a false application, if the person says, I never signed it, and you can't prove that I did, it would stop right there, I think. So I was just looking for anybody who knowingly submits false information, and it's been witnessed that it was knowingly turned in and signed, then the prosecutor might have something to go against. But without a witness, I think a person could say, I never signed it, and you can't prove I did. You and I went to law school together, so that's my legal opinion.
and you know, having just been at CCAM training 3 weeks ago, we've, 114 counties, there's gonna be 114 different applications. Just talking to all these other first-class counties, every application's gonna be different. So it's,
So would that be a prosecutor's question to say we need to have that on there, or when they submit, I mean, who's gonna submit one with a signature? Am I gonna come and fake one for Debbie because she's not qualified to try to get her in trouble?
Well, my assumption is anybody that's applying and is married, one's gonna sign it as the applicant and the other's gonna sign as the witness.
I wouldn't put witness on it. I wouldn't put a witness on it. It's an extra step, and I don't think it's necessary. We used to have witnesses on marriage license, and they got away with that. It was not worth the effort, and it didn't really prove anything, and you've got ownership you're gonna prove anyway, so.
I don't wanna get in the weeds with this, but there are, yeah, okay, we'll get in the weeds. Okay, there are gonna be instances where the person who's filling it out no longer owns that property. They think they own it, or they act like they own it, but they just haven't recorded the transfer that's been made to the grandkids or whoever. They haven't done that. So the recorder's not aware of that. But there are gonna be instances where people are gonna say, hell, we should have never transferred that to the grandkids. Oh, wait a minute, we haven't recorded that yet. We can still get this credit. Mark my words, it's gonna happen.
Well, you're gonna have the vast majority, no problem.
I'm not worried about the vast majority, I'm worried about the handful who are gonna lie, cheat, and steal. They're gonna take money from political subdivisions that's not theirs
Well, I
to
didn't
take.
get there yet, but I
That's what-
understand that concern.
that's what
I
I'm
didn't
worried
get there
about.
yet, yeah, I was explaining it,
I
so.
think 95,
That's
6,
gonna go
7,
in our
8% are
other
gonna be
bucket
accurate.
of concern. You're gonna have like 3 different buckets here. So, and I was just talking about the vast majority, and then you're
Sure.
gonna have that concern, and how are you gonna weed that out? I mean, who's gonna sit and track them down? I don't know.
Judy?
Yeah, not me. No, sounds like Harry wants to.
But if they say they gave it to their children, but they haven't recorded it, who's paying the taxes on it? Are the children paying the taxes on it
You have to
then?
refile every year.
Or
So if they were qualified.
As a collector, we don't care who pays the taxes, just as long as they're paid. So you can't count on that as proof of ownership.
So if they qualified, and say they qualify now with a base year of 25, and they do something in 5 years, they have to reapply every year. So if they come in the following year and it's not correctly been recorded for whatever reason, I mean, at some point it's gonna come up, and we'll find it. We'll find that they lied about it, then we can go after them.
And the other thing is,
Just my
the
thoughts
recorder's
on it.
office does not prove ownership, so that's a little glitch in the wording. We're gonna have to either remove it or put assessor. In the recorder's office, we record documents, we preserve them, we index them, we maintain them for legal purposes. We do not prove or say you are the owner. We are bound by statute, we have to follow the law too. So if you read 59-200, we cannot say you are the owner. We don't title research, we don't prove you're the owner. And ownership is many different documents, judgments, beneficiary deed, trusts, different,
Well, I don't-
declarations.
I'm certainly not assuming that you prove who the owner is, but the document, to me, is what proves who the owner is. Not your office, but the document that's recorded.
That would be the assessor's office. They change the ownership. You can record many documents, and you're gonna have to interpret grantor, grantee. That's legal interpretation. The assessor, once we record that information, it goes to the assessor, and he assesses who the actual owner is. I'm just talking
He
about.
doesn't assess who the owner
He,
is.
he tells you who the owner is.
You tell him who the owner is.
No, we
He
don't.
takes
The
it off.
document, he interprets it.
Whatever the deed says, that is.
Again, the
owner of that
document, when I
property.
say you, I'm
Most people
referring to
who
the
come in,
recorder's
they don't
office.
know who a grantee is.
I understand that.
So that's interpretation.
But any name we get that comes through our system
Comes from
comes
the
through you
assessor.
first, you first.
No, it does not.
Yes, it goes from
Our
you to the
document goes to
assessor
the
to
ass-
us.
It does not go to you, it goes to him and then you.
Goes to the-
I know how the chain
Go ahead,
works.
Tim. That's how the chain
I
works.
think homestead,
It goes to the assessor.
homestead's the key word here, not owner. It's your homestead. You can own the property and not reside in it. And just because you own the property doesn't mean that you're going to qualify for this freeze. It's only the property in which you reside, in which you homestead. So you can be the owner
That
of
is
multiple
correct.
properties.
That is correct.
So owner
Only the
is
one
not,
you reside in.
that's correct.
But doesn't it
We
have to be
understand that.
both, owner and
And
homesteader? I mean, resident or whatever, it can't be,
That's a
Yes.
I own 5 and
Sure.
I'm gonna choose this one because it's the highest.
it's where, you-
value.
right, where you
Yeah,
reside.
yeah.
Owner and residence.
Yeah.
Yep. But I was just saying that we record it, then it goes to the assessor, then it goes to the collector. Record, assess, collect.
This is why we did these meetings before, because it was.
I mean,
a
I
lot
know
of
the scope of what we
discussion,
do. I've done it a long time here. We record it, maintain it, preserve it for legal interpretation. We do not provide legal interpretation, we do not provide ownership.
I think where the fraud is gonna take place is it their homestead or not? Or or are they gonna say, it's most advantageous for me to say I reside in this one of the 5 that I own? Sorry. Oh, that's all right, that's okay.
Like, how, I mean, how do you prove that? Are you gonna send in a black ops and have them survey, like, what do you?
I did see a link on another county's website where they could type in their address and pull up on the collector's website their parcel ID and their legal description, so I don't know if that's something you have.
That's on our
didn't see it.
website.
It's on yours? Okay.
Yes.
I think you're gonna have more people trying to do it in multi-county than you're just gonna have people trying to have maybe 4 properties in Cole County trying to finagle which one is their actual true homestead or where they actually reside. So, I don't know, if we have one that looks a little shady, we could probably require some kind of a, electric bill. I mean, if it goes to a PO box, it's still gonna show that it's being served there, or how we wanna do that.
Harry, what's the shady ones? He's gonna track them down? I mean, there's gonna be glitches, yeah, and we're gonna help whatever we can do here, but I just wanna be careful that we're not saying you are the owner. I have to be careful that we're following the law in our office.
Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to do is step 1 was get an application together that's simple, doable, has information we need. I don't think all of us agreed necessarily on everything on this. It's a conglomeration of what we thought would work best. Kind of modeled after Boone counties, and then the frequently asked questions were as well. So that's kind of where we're starting, and then we probably want to look at getting another meeting together, and probably just doing open meetings at some point, and having all 3 of us here, because if there's a decision that needs to be made, we can do it then and there. Because I think we're kind of to that point now, who makes the decision. We can listen to all the arguments and say, this is what we're gonna do.
What did we decide on the acreage, for the residential, part of the homestead? Did we decide to do
We're not
whatever the
limiting it.
Okay,
Yeah, whatever the residents have.
okay.
Or at least that was our last discussion, so.
My main argument on that is if you've got, say you've got a 10-acre tract and it's all assessed at residential tax rate, if you wanna go and separate that or if we wanna make them separate that 3 acres out to go with their homestead or whatever arbitrary acreage we pick, then we're gonna lose because on the other 7 acres, it's gonna be assessed on agriculture. So we go from being assessed at the 12 or 19% residential to 12% agriculture. So we just figured if it's a 10-acre tract with their homestead on it, just go that route.
So if it's 20 acres they have, is it on the whole 20 acres?
It's whatever the assessor has it as now.
I'm gonna bet you that nobody's got 20 acres that is purely assessed as residential. They're gonna have some kind of agriculture, unimproved, something, and just maybe 3 acres for their home as the residential.
Okay.
There may be some out there that are, but rather than having to make us go through that extra step of taking more tracts and separating it out and do the assessments differently. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's where our thoughts were on that, and there was a lot of discussion on that too, so.
Well, I appreciate everything you all have done. And as I said, after having talked to commissioners at our conference, there's gonna be 114 different applications. It's what, bottom line, that's what it comes down to. So, yes.
I got 2 questions, so I need to come back up there.
Please.
Like Jordan said 30 years ago.
Put you on there.
Sit right there.
Thank you. All right. This is a question for all 3 y'all, but Harry probably specifically since you brought it up. Do you have any specific evidence or what are your reasons to expect fraud will be a problem with this process? I doubt anyone walked up to you and said, hey, I'm gonna BS this, but I mean, just like what?
spent over 50 years as a CPA. I know how people operate, maybe only 1 or 2% of them, but to naively think that everybody is honest all the time is a problem, especially if you have some kind of authority to say no based upon that. I mean, you know what? We're not gonna be giving away much of the county's money here. But we're a party to giving away money that belongs to a school district, to a library, to Cole County Residential Services, to fire protection districts, whoever relies upon property tax. We are a party to reducing the revenue of that political subdivision. I think we owe it to them to be sure we don't reduce it too much and give a break to someone who doesn't qualify for the break.
And I think you're gonna have some who have second homes in Florida, Arizona. You know, the home here in Cole County at one time was probably their primary residence. Now, they might actually be spending 9 months out of the year down south. So is it still their primary residence, or, I mean, they're still paying taxes on it. They still own it, but, that's just kind of something and I could see somebody who has that issue, they're still gonna apply for it here because they're saying, well, this is, you know, where I lived for 20 years before I moved to Florida.
I mean, you also, you had a meeting about this 114 counties. Is there a comparable state, I mean, even if you're doing it county by county, is the information uploaded into a database where it's comparable at the state level to make sure that there is no fraud?
In other words, someone's claiming
Someone's claiming it in this county, and Callaway County, and Boone County, and, you know, some county on the Boone Hills.
fair question. There's no magic button that you, that any one of whoever is in charge presses and says, has this party claimed the homeowners, whatever we call this thing, senior freeze. We got lots of names for it, but are they claiming the senior freeze in another county in the state of Missouri? Good question.
So will that show on our tax bill?
No.
You're gonna have your tax bill, and then is there gonna be a credit on there? Cause your tax bill that you pay is gonna be different than what you actually get assessed.
Credit will show on your tax bill. But the easiest way, in my opinion, to some degree, is looking at voter registration rolls, because normally that's somebody's primary residence.
Is there any way to tie, okay, like in the state of Tennessee, I'm not a homeowner, but in the state of Tennessee, when my license renews each year, I have to show proof of insurance. If I don't show proof of insurance, then my license doesn't renew. It's in the automated system, so you can't, so that way they verify insurance. Is there a way to tie this process to something else that gets renewable every year to verify that people aren't cheating the system?
Not off the top of my head, other than, like I said, being able to verify their primary residence, possibly through their voter registration, if they are a registered voter. And other than that, looking at the information that a deed might provide as who the owner of the property is.
My final question would be, especially considering you're dealing with older adults, and I'm not sure how many of them have a printer at home or wanna run to the library to print this off, why not make it an editable PDF online and signable using like DocuSign or something like that? To where they can do it all on their computer and they don't have to print it out and come down, cause, you know, that's a hassle.
We're looking at doing that.
Okay.
We haven't gotten that far yet, but we certainly anticipate being able to do that.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Larry, I guess it's probably gonna fall on you to tell each political subdivision out there how much they has been credited and how much of their revenue has dropped for this feature, right?
Whatever you think, Harry.
Well, what I'm getting to is, today when you send the bill out, you do have a total at the bottom, but you have the school, the city, the fire protection district or whatever, the library, everybody is listed that's gonna have a piece of.
The actual tax bill will only show a credit on it, but reports, we'll be able to print reports that show what each district is not getting.
Will each tax-paying citizen see how much it costs their county, their city, their school district?
No.
Why not?
There's not enough room on a tax bill.
Okay, get a bigger tax bill. I mean, you're
It's a
gonna have
software
the numbers. You will accumulate the totals and you'll tell the school district.
Yes.
This is how much you're not getting. And that's gonna tie back to how much it is from every payor.
To be honest with you, I don't think the payor cares what it's affecting, they just want the credit.
Well, they could
There's
figure
no
it out
way
in
to
a
get
hurry.
that-
They could figure it out in a hurry, because if 85% of their taxes went to their school district, 85% of the credit is being sucked up by the school district. True?
It's more about 75%.
Whatever the number is.
Yeah.
You're kind of opposing to the vendor, so, definite.
Yeah, they're just not, our tax bills are pretty full the way they are now. And I don't want to go to a two-page tax bill. Unless Gretchen wants to.
If you click on the collector's website now and to look up an online tax bill, it is a two-pager, isn't it? Or front and back.
Well, there's quite a bit of information on them if you.
No,
It's even a front and back, and it's got last year's evaluation next to it.
I don't know, I haven't printed one off online. We don't care how many pages it is on the website when you're looking at it.
Well, then.
We could
that-
probably put the information there without
Alright.
difficulty.
I guess
We
that's
just
what
can't put it on the tax bill.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on there that's
All
not
right.
on.
Well, the tax bill is only, is it this big?
No, it's 8.5 by 11. And it's a 3-section bill typically. The top portion has the taxing entities, the amount of taxes, the middle portion has a description of the property. If it's personal property, vehicles and stuff, if it's residence, it'll have a parcel number and assessed value. And then the bottom portion is what gets sent back to us with payment, or brought in for payment. And then the whole back of it just has general information, where you can pay, how you can pay.
But a lot of people don't look at that. They won't flip their,
They won't even turn it over,
yeah,
yeah.
because they'll call and ask if there's a phone number they can call to pay. I'm like, "Do you
And
have your
here's our
tax bill?
standard
Turn it over."
response, turn your tax bill over. It's all on the back. And we get hundreds of calls like that every tax season.
Yeah.
So we're working to pursue to have something hopefully ready by the middle of April. For our office, the collector's office, we have delinquent tax bills that start going out the 1st of April. That takes about a week or so to get that done. The clerk's office has an election on the 8th, I think. Is it the 8th or something like that? So probably mid-April might be our target date for having, and I don't know if Melissa and Brian can have their portion.
They've already set up the therefore, document management part. The other stuff is just, we need to make some decisions about exactly how we're gonna accept those applications, and is it all gonna be people coming in, are we gonna allow people to mail them? I mean, a lot of counties that
Yeah.
I've seen have done, all of those options.
We just need to have some general discussion about that. I'm not opposed to them being able to fill them out online and submit them. My concern again is some of the proof that needs to go with that as their age, people are probably not gonna want to submit their driver's license online or their passport, a copy of their passport or something like that. So it's gonna be determined in how we gather that information to make sure that they're qualified for the credit. But we are making progress.
You are.
When
And-
we decide on the signatures, then are we going to have a witness, or we want to talk to the prosecutor to see if he needs a witness to be able to prosecute him? I know we kind of went back and forth on that one, so did we decide anything on that?
I forget who said it, but I think probably you're gonna have your wife witnesses, or your spouse witnesses, so,
Most of these people may not have any life, I mean, they're gonna be old enough that
their
they
girlfriend.
may have lost them or
I don't know.
whatever, you know, so.
I've never used DocuSign, I don't have that.
You may not have that many of them that have that, but if they want
They may have both.
We don't wanna get into that, that's nowhere on the application.
Some people might have to decide which wife to have sign.
That's not on the application.
Or husband.
Or husband.
Or making my story good.
Okay.
We haven't
Well,
made a decision, you
okay,
can't move on.
how about this, inquire with the prosecutor's office, does he have a comment on whether or not it ought to happen with the shoe line?
That's kind of where I thought we were left a while ago, but I wanted to make sure that.
I mean,
But it's
some of those are
still-
your all's decisions to make, not the committee's, because this is obviously, it's your ordinance, your program. We just happen to be the unfortunate people that you dumped it on, so. I certainly want to thank Jeff for pulling our meetings together, and Brian and Melissa for the work they've done. Been very helpful, and Judy and Carrie and Gretchen and Ralph and Sheila and Debbie. I mean, everybody's.
Everybody's input.
Mark's come, but he
Very
hasn't,
valuable,
he hasn't contributed anything, so.
I missed the last meeting.
And Jessica also, I mean, everybody's come to the meetings and helped, had good suggestions in that. And we've actually pared it down quite a bit from what we started with as far as the application and facts to make it as simple as we could. And that's our goal, is to make it easy for the taxpayer to apply and get the credit as long as they provide us with the necessary information, so.
And just for full disclosure, Sam and I have not attended the meetings, not because we don't want to, because if we did, I mean, we'd have to publish them, broadcast them, tell the world, come in and watch us meet. I mean, this has been a fine meeting, lots of good input here, but I thought I would hamstring you if I would attend the other meetings you've already had and put a quorum of the commission there. And not that we're trying to avoid sunshine, it's just that it was just tough to schedule, list, broadcast, and all that other things that go with it. And anytime, if you're willing to publish it, broadcast it, I'll be there.
I think we were looking at maybe trying to do that to keep things rolling, to do I was thinking a standalone meeting, just for
That's
the
fine.
tax freeze.
Yeah.
And maybe even, next Tuesday in the afternoon, after our regularly scheduled meetings, if you're available. I know we got the V-Day lunch next Tuesday, so, but I think it's supposed to be done at,
1:30.
that sounds right, so.
Well, and I've been receiving your emails, so I've got a pretty thick file, which I appreciate, and, I've just been reading those, couple of them that you sent back comments on, but I think, I appreciate the emails, and, I think you're doing a superb job,
So,
and,
then, do you wanna do this next Tuesday? Is that too aggressive? But I mean, we need to stay aggressive if we're gonna have some kind of rollout in April. It's already March 18th, so, that's kind of my goal, is to keep it sometime in April. We just rolled out. And one of the decisions we'll have to make is gonna be what our application dates are. For this first go-around, especially 2025 is the base year. don't have to have anything done before the end of the year, or maybe even not even June 30th of next year.
But I'm getting so many phone calls, and I think
I keep telling them to
if
call you, Sam.
if they wanna fill out an application now, cause I've been trying to explain to them about the lag and everything, but they wanna fill out an application, so, and I have told them for a year, to fill it out yearly, but I think if we can have the application done, let's let them start filling it up, applying.
I agree, but like I said, it's probably gonna be mid-April at the earliest, and then we'll hopefully have something to put out on the website, and maybe we can put some information out there now, kind of a, yeah.
That's where this comes in, is approving the applications. What is the date that they have to have this?
Yeah.
For 2025 submitted June 30th, 2025, or we're gonna go December 31st, 2025? Because next year we have to change the application. It's gonna be, I mean, I guess we can use it, well, no, because it's gonna have to have, was the applicant 62 or older before January 1st, 2026, so there's minor changes, but there will be changes.
Also, I didn't know if you all needed to change the ordinance. The ordinance does say it has to be a notarized signature.
We would probably.
We would like to have that, I would like to see that removed. I think everybody on the committee has agreed that that's not necessary, so.
You got that, Larry?
I agree.
So, I mean, we can, I was gonna ask the prosecutor unless Jill's got some input on the
Well, it probably
signature.
should come from you, because you can ask him, I mean, yeah, evidence to the extent that they're the ones who are gonna be charging, so
Yeah.
you probably would have the best insight.
Can you check with?
Well, I think it should come from someone in the committee, because I haven't been involved.
Larry,
So
I did
don't
suggest
know
that
if
you
we'll
have a line for a power of attorney to
I
have like
just
an
would ask
attorney
him,
fax sign,
you
do
can
you
get
think
ready a copy of this,
separate
tell him this is
signature
on the
for
back,
that?
and we have to have
Separate
it.
signature line for
with
that?
this
I will
signature.
call.
I have a
will
place
call.
for 2 signatures on the back of the application. I
You
was
don't
just
have to
gonna
be on
change
the
one of
committee.
those.
No, I will just
Okay.
talk and ask
Okay.
So,
if.
because we're only requiring, one
We're
person
gonna
to
ask-
buy on the front.
Yes.
Okay.
I will ask.
Sam is gonna ask about the prosecutor, about the witness.
Thank you.
Harry, you know the problems we've had in the recorder's office when witnesses used to have to sign, they wanted their dog's footprint, they wanted their chickens to scratch it. We had all kinds of crazy questions for, can this witness sign?
Legit.
Our marriage license, oh, yeah. And we have our dog's paw print, can we be our witness?
Yeah, can our chicken scratch it? He's our witness. We spent more time waiting crazy calls for a witness signature than explaining the process of a license.
I'll put it on whether she's
Did the-
been there for 15 years.
Since a dog's years are different, are they 21 in 3 years or 5 years?
Well, I didn't ask, but I'm
Okay.
sure they would know.
Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
So,
Thank you.
Unless
very much.
anybody else wants to.
2 o'clock next week?
I put down 1:30, but 2's better.
Yeah, because you won't, by the time you get out of VTE
2:30,
and,
the meeting. Did you say 2 or 2:30?
I was just saying 2.
Okay.
They usually keep it within time, we should be done
Okay.
at 1:30.
We'll get it scheduled.
So we'll have to figure out if we need to appeal the portion about the notarized signature from our ordinance. Then we want to talk about the dates, I think, as well. And probably talk about the process, where we're gonna have them come to apply. And that to do with some of the dates too, because I know everybody's not wanting to do it during October and December. During the elections, the clerk's office probably not gonna help at all on that.
What was the final decision on the name
senior tax freeze.
Well, we're not gonna call it Osage.
I'm just saying that,
That would be confusing.
Do they have any property tax in Cole County? We do have some overlapping ones, especially for schools.
You know, there is a,
say, quote,
there's been a senior tax credit since 72 in Missouri, and they're still being confused with this. It's
The-
the one, it's a 750 max one, or whatever, maybe they've adjusted.
It's
for low income.
It's a Form 948, and it is for low incomes. You either get a 750 credit, I think if you're a renter, or a $1,000 credit if you're a homeowner.
And your income
And
is
your
less than
income is less
30,000,
than
and the tax is
35,000 or
over
something.
1,000.
Yeah. At one time, the state did fund a senior tax credit that anybody could apply for. I don't think it was income specific, but that went out shortly after I became a collector. Because we used to get paid by the state for those credits that were applied for.
nice.
Mice. Big mice.
Okay, anything else?
Not unless anybody else that's participating has anything else they want to add.
Do we have any unfinished business?
I forgot to turn this in at the beginning. It's the RAC's annual report that they turned in. I think I emailed to you guys quite a while ago, but it just goes under the reports, so that's all I have.
Okay, anything else?
I make a motion, we adjourn
Sorry,
and
the
stand
25th
in,
at 2.
no, I'm sorry, just to stand in recess until 4:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And again, thank you.
I have a question for you anyway. So you
And I'm